Oh, hi there. It's a bit cold today. We have had the first snow, the first touch of winter. But that won't stop us when we proceed with the build. Last time you saw me put on the deck, but now we're gonna continue the build with the towers. And earlier this summer I prepared a lot of material for putting in this space here. Although things has changed since then, and the material won't fit so well. So I'm actually gonna throw this away and make new ones. I start cutting new plywood pieces. That will fit better. I just need to mark what to cut and trim off the excess with the belt sander. Better, but it could be improved further. After some iteration at the sanding station, I can temporarily fit the side and continue with the next piece. I continue marking the cuts so that the piece will fit. It's much easier to get an exact fit when using the hole as a mold. Thus I will probably not use the pre-cut pieces for the hull number 2 either. I use a Japan style saw, as this gives better control than with an usual saw. And the piece fits from the beginning. To make the joinings really strong, I measure out strips of 1/4 rounds that I cut to length. Joining the vertical and horizontal plywood sheets with a 1/4 round will increase the bonding area, eliminate the needs for fillets, and still be lightweight. I dry fit all parts together. Make a rather thick epoxy glue and start loosen up the masking tape mock-up so that I can smear the thick glue on the contact surfaces. I smear on both sides of each joint instead of one thick layer on one side. Having glue on both sides, there is less risk of a dry joint, as each surface is pre-wet. I continue with the 1/4 rounds. But notice I did a thinking error. All 3 sides needs to be loose at the same time. Otherwise I can't glue in behind the longer 1/4 rounds. I use masking tape to hold everything in place. Clamps would have been better, but I couldn't fit them here. Masking tape works good enough if you use it on dry surfaces. The day after I can remove the masking tape. As I will glass in these surfaces now, I need to remove all tape. I have pre-cut all glass that I need. Notice that I start the furthest in with the epoxy work. This is not to get epoxy on myself, as the edges are still dry. Thus I glass in the side wall first. Add the corner piece. This 160 gram twill woven glass cloth bends really well. In the inside corners it can take 90 degrees bend. Still, I made a small fillet when I glued the side pieces in place. I also make sure to press out all air. Using somewhat thickened epoxy also helps with the contact. I glass over the 1/4 rounds as well. Before I move on. I have some leftover epoxy from this batch. I add some more cotton fibers and microballoons to make up a fairing compound that I use to afterfill the glass structure, and add some thickness to the laminate. After curing, I sand off the sharp edges before I start laying down the final pieces. Here you can see the benefit with the large bonding areas. The area can hold much thickened epoxy, and it's easy to add enough to make a solid joining to further improve the bond. I smear epoxy on the other side as well before I set down the plywood into the glue. Some small afterfilling, and then I seal everything up from this side. I don't want anything to leak out when I flip the hull over. Now the tricky part. I want the edges to become smooth, also from the inside. Thus I will try to glass the inside when the joints are still wet. So I get all material in and use a small hatch opening to wet out the surface. Lay out the cloth and start wetting it out. This isn't my best camera moves. Neither glasswork. But you get the picture. And it ends up reasonably well. I rather do sanding outdoors, but it's so cold outdoors, as you saw in the last episode. I will go slow to reduce dust. Thus, I do these small sanding jobs indoors. I need to trim off some excess material and round the edges to be able to glass in the outside. The outside 90 degrees bends even this thin glass cloth can't take. I put the thin cloth on the beam holding sides as well. But I also add a piece of 300 gram cloth to strengthen it further. It's around the screw holes this extra cloth will do the most use. After curing, I can clean cut the edges. After some work, I have piled up some waste. As I now have straight edges, I can put on glass from the other side. Without the edge interfering with the glassing. The day after, the glass has cured, and I can clean cut these edges as well, and continue around the next corner. I fill out the laminate on this side as well. As I do the filling before the epoxy has cured less than 24 hours, I don't need to do any sanding to get a good bond. This is all for this time. Next time I will try a new paint. I hope to see you back here then. And remember, please leave a like or a comment.